I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee, sitting as a committee of the whole. We have a number of agenda items this evening. Just so you all have some perspective, we're going to first hear from the mayor as it pertains to an overview of the budget. I'm going to move then into item D and try to knock off some of the easier items on the list, and I'm going to go backwards to status of appropriations and to the budget. I want everybody to rest assured. First of all, you don't have to feel hurried. This is a very important, it's probably the most important thing, or one of the most important things we do as a council, is to review and approve a budget. So I don't want anybody to feel like everything has to get done tonight. It doesn't. We have reserved 3 additional nights plus Thursday, and we'll reserve more and more if we have to. So I don't want anybody here leaving thinking that, they didn't have a chance to think about something, comment on something, or ask a question. We can have people come as often as we'd like. It's just an important time for all of you. I want you to make sure that you really understand we're not in a rush tonight. So let's digest and really listen to what's happening within our city. So with that, I'd ask Mr. Mayor if you would like to begin your presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to all of you tonight. I wanted to take a few minutes to provide you with a very brief overview of the fiscal year 2020 city budget. For the last several weeks, couple months, probably even more than that, I've been working every day with our municipal finance team and each of our city department heads. And I wanted to just first start out with a giant thank you to our finance director, Mike Gingras, our city auditor, Mary Martin, for their hard work during this process, as well as to all of our department heads who, I think all of them just about, are here today and ready to answer questions. I wanted to thank them for their work. My goal, so you're giving it to Council Mitsoulas, the broken one? My goal, as always, is to present a budget which provides for the core municipal services residents expect here in Peabody, while maintaining our stature as among the most affordable places to live in all of Massachusetts. Each budget year presents its own set of challenges, and this one certainly is no different. In fact, I've been very open in saying that this has been the most difficult budget yet that I've experienced as mayor. I did want to apologize ahead of time. I think this budget got to you a little later than it has in years past. I wanted to say, and Councilor Gravel said it very well, I will be here any night you want me to. Any department heads, I'm sure they will be here as well. I'll come on weekends, whatever you need, questions. I've been living with this budget for quite a while. I feel that I can answer any question that's presented to me, and certainly I know the finance team as well. But any meeting that you would like to have, any questions, I know a number of you have reached out to me over the last several weeks with questions, and always ready to field those and be here any night, certainly. But I did want to state that this was a difficult budget. I know many of you came to some of the school committee meetings. I know probably all of you at one point or another watched some of the school committee meetings, but certainly a very challenging period of time. And I think this budget has been worked on quite a bit, and again, but always very difficult moments as we work our way through it. To provide you with some context, last year's city budget totaled $171,286,426. As all of you know, about half of that amount makes up the school budget, which funds the operation of our 8 elementary schools, the New Higgins Middle School, Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, and the Essex Vocational Technical School in Danvers. The largest budget expenditure by far is for employee salaries and health insurance, which makes up about 70% of our overall budget costs. Those are the backbone of our city, of any city. These are the teachers, the police officers, firefighters, DPW workers, the department heads, people here tonight, important administrative staff who help make Peabody such a great place to live, work, go to school, and raise a family. Now, contractual obligations and cost of living increases for our current employees certainly factor into this year's budget growth, and we can plan for them accordingly. However, there are other costs, non-discretionary or mandatory line items, which have skyrocketed in recent years and unfortunately will place a larger burden on Peabody taxpayers. This year, the items I've been particularly concerned with, and you have all heard me speak about these. Approximately $1 million increase in our health insurance premiums, a 4.5% increase in our payment to the retirement system, totaling nearly $500,000, an increase of $700,000 in debt service. That is the principal and interest on all of our outstanding bonds. A 6% increase in our assessment from the North Shore Essex Vocational Technical High School in Danvers, totaling nearly $250,000. A $1 million increase in special education tuition costs, an obligation we share as a community and one that is the right thing for all of us to do. Transportation costs associated with homeless students and students in foster care, totaling over $400,000. An increase in out-of-district special education transportation costs of nearly $270,000. Again, these are costs that are non-discretionary, mandatory line items that we receive a bill, those have to be paid. They're not negotiated items like what are done with our unions and our different bargaining groups. As a result of these costs and other items I did not list, we have been forced to make some tough decisions during this budget process. Because of these escalating costs, I felt we needed to find some cost-saving measures. In this city budget before you today, we are not adding one full-time position. In fact, we have eliminated 7.5 full-time positions. Although I propose these reductions with a good deal of trepidation and acknowledging the risk of any staff reduction, I believe we can continue to provide the core essential municipal services our residents have come to expect from us. Today, I am presenting you with a $158.8 million 2020 fiscal year budget. Mike Gingras and Mary Martin will be providing the overview, which will include the breakout and the mechanics of the creation, implementation, and funding of the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund I'm hoping to be approved tonight. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, Mary, and myself are ready to move forward with the overview or with the presentation at the appropriate time. I will be here all night, certainly to answer any questions, as well as our many department heads that are here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, while I want to get as quick as possible to your to the presentation, I think a lot of the budget has embedded in it this idea of the enterprise fund. So I think it might be appropriate to have all the members familiar with what the enterprise fund is, what you're seeking to do, and then we'll discuss the impact that has on the budget itself. Mr. Gingrich?
Thank you. Good evening. Well, we're requesting the creation of a water and sewer enterprise fund. And as part of the budget process, we stripped out the water and sewer budget, benefits, direct costs for debt service, and some other support positions to create this new enterprise fund. In order to do that, we have to accept as a city the section 53F and a half of the Massachusetts General Laws to establish the fund. And that's what we're requesting tonight.
Have we received, does anybody know, have we received the Water Enterprise Fund documentation? Is it in the packet? Can I get a motion to receive it? On the motion to receive, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Questions on behalf of the council to Mr. Gingrich or the mayor as it pertains to the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund? Mr. Gould, Council Gould.
Thank you. Mike, can you tell us where in the package it is, please? Because, is it highlighted? Is it,
The Water and Sewer Enterprise is embedded in some of the slides in the overview, and then in the main budget book, at the end of the budget book, there's I believe it's a blue tab that says Water and Sewer Enterprise.
got it, thank you, sir.
And if anybody's looking for it, it's item D in the finance package.
April 24th is the date written, I think.
That's correct.
That's correct. Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification. Are you looking to move this up in the agenda, or are you looking to act on this at this point, or are you just
No,
looking
I'm looking to act on it at this point in time so that, because it's such an integral part of the budget, it might as well be acted upon. If we're not going to accept it,
No,
then the budget should go back for a recasting because everything's been stripped.
That makes complete sense, Mr. Chairman. I understand. I just,
Yeah, do you have any questions, or? Anybody have any questions? Councilor Turco.
Thank you. I've been in favor of the Enterprise Fund for Water and Sewer since I've been on the council, so I'm glad we finally did it. My one question is, I know that in Lynn, when they set up the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, they created a Water and Sewer Commission. Are we obligated to set up a Water and Sewer Commission, or will this stay under the guidance of the council and the mayor?
No, there's no obligation to do that. We're following Chapter 53F and a half, and there's no obligation for a commission.
Thank you, that's all.
Other questions? Councilor Melville?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can you speak to how much of what the difference was between what the rates basically funded versus what was supplemented through, the tax revenue that came in? Because I think a big part of this is that the ratepayer will fund the actual operations of the water and sewer.
Thank you. When I get through to the slide presentation, you'll see a slide in there that shows approximately 1.2 million in this current fiscal year was supported from the taxpayers towards the water and sewer costs.
Good. Council Sasslaw?
So I just had a question, in looking at the budget and understanding the enterprise fund a little bit, where do you take into place funding for the repairs? Is there a line item there for repairs, or?
Do you mean by the capital projects by repairs or
No, I'm talking about repairs. There seems to be, a decent amount of water breaks in the line, so I'm curious how you they're emergencies, but you have to repair them, obviously.
for the most part, those are contracted out? So it would either be the internal payroll accounts or contracted services.
Okay, I see the contracted services, so in 2018, 263, 2019, 274, and you've budgeted for 230,000, is that correct? I believe that's the line item we're talking about, page 61.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I'm just concerned because we don't have the water department here on a regular basis. As I said, they have seemed, and I know I've discussed it briefly with the mayor just in passing, that there have seemed to be a lot of water main breaks, especially in West Peabody. I'm just, I hope that 230 is enough, but it just seems to be happening on a regular basis. At some point, maybe we're gonna look at replacing some of those lines. I know we're doing a ton of work with the water. I have no issue with that, but it's just something that I just, want to bring up, and it's something that hopefully that the water department keeps their eye on, because I know that obviously emergencies, it costs a lot of money, no matter what time of the day it is, and I know some of those repairs have gone on for 12 hours, and I applaud the department. They've done a great job of getting them back up. I just want to let them know that, you have my support, and if you do feel that we need to take another step with some of these lines, please feel free to, let us know, rather than emergency work. If it needs to be done, it does need to be done, and I understand that. Thank you.
Councilor Sasslaw? Councilor Turco?
Thank you, and on to Councilor Saslaw's point, as he was speaking about it, I noticed that that line item is zeroed out. So are we not funding the $230,000, or is it?
I combined that with the previous line item, so the contracted service line's 390.
Thank you, I have it.
Other questions? Just important to note that the favorable financing that we're receiving to redo the water plant and the infrastructure is directly related to us accepting this particular capability within the city. So, as one member, I would recommend that we all support this. I think it's a great way to run, and we have to hold on to it for 3 years, and you get a chance to review it again at the end of 3 years. So with that, Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that the City of Peabody accept the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53, F and a half of the Massachusetts General Law establishing water and sewer service as an enterprise fund effective July 1st, 2019 for fiscal year 2020. So moved.
You've heard the motion by Councilor McGinn. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
Okay, we will now take up the presentation. Mr. Gingrich.
Thank you. So, as we just started to address, this budget's a little different because we've broken out the water and sewer enterprise fund. So I'm going to take you through a series of slides that kind of tries to show the comparison of last year to this year with that water and sewer enterprise. This first slide shows the 10-year history of our budget growth. Over the past 4 or 5 years, we've averaged $5.1 million per year budget increase. You'll see this year there's a decrease going from the $171 million to the $158.8 million because of the creation of the water sewer enterprise. In this slide, we're comparing the full fiscal FY 2019 $171.2 million budget with the FY 2020 budget of $158.8 million, plus the water and sewer proposed enterprise budget of $19.1 million, which totals $177.9. So you can see that little green part of the bar chart is the $6.7 million increase budget to budget. The next slide shows what's driving that increase, what the budget drivers are for this $6.7 million. Payroll is 2.1, school tuitions, contracted services, 1.2, the health insurance, 1.1, debt service, 748,000, retirement, 450,000. The combined of increases in MWRA and SESD of 300,000. School utilities and other expenses, 265,000. An increase at the Essex North Shore Volk of 244,000. And combined water and sewer and city other increases of 144,000 is the bulk of that increased budget to budget. This slide is a more traditional slide that we normally do, where we look at changes in budget by expense type. But this year, I've taken the city budget proposed for FY 2020. I took the FY 2019 budget and reduced it by what it would have been if we had a water and sewer enterprise last year. and then created the difference to show the increase of 2.5 million. On the school side, it includes the North Shore Voc Tech, and you'd see the increase there of 3.4 million. The total increases across is 5.9 million. Without looking at the water and sewer enterprise, these are just the increases within the city budget. Again, payroll and employee benefits, purchase services are driving the bulk of the budget. This next chart is just the increases in the water sewer enterprise alone, and it makes up the other portion of the $6.7 million increase. 43% of the increase is in salaries, which accounts for increases in ASME union and ordinance positions, as well as moving some support positions from public services to the enterprise. We moved the mason tender, an environmental engineer, a civil engineer, and a diesel repairman. In addition, there was an increase in purchase services of 24.3%, and this increase for MWRA and SESD of 19.7%. These three items account for 80% of the total increase. This slide is another way to look at the budget changes. It reflects the budget by function. Education increases 3.4 million. Public safety, 966,000. Human services at 215,000. And employee benefits at 134,000. That's the increased portion of the budget. Then as we move items out, we have total decreases of 17.1 million, primarily driven by the move of water and sewer and public services of 16.7 million and debt service. This next pie chart shows how this $158.8 million budget breaks out. Education and benefits and public safety make up 82% of the budget. The remainder is public works and debt service at 5% each, general government and culture and recreation at 3% each, and human services at 2%. Education budget has increased 5% over 2019. Employee benefits 2% over the prior year. Public safety 2% over the prior year. And culture and recreation 1%. This pie chart shows the allocation by expense type. You can see that salaries and benefits, two largest parts of the pie, total 122.6 million, or 77% of the total budget. Debt service is 5%, and intergovernmental is 2%, adding up to 84% of the total budget in those areas. And then when you take into consideration the professional services, part of it for special education and contracted services are 6.3%. That gets us up to 90.3%, which leaves us very little to accommodate other expenses and costs. This is another chart we normally do to highlight the salaries versus expenses by function. As you can see, almost all the functions are salary driven, except for public services. It's the only exception where 66% of their budget is expense versus 34% salary, and mostly due to the contracts that we have for trash disposal in that budget. So of the $158.8 million budget, we need to fund this, and we're going to fund it from different sources. Property tax being the largest source. Our proposal is using $111.1 million from the tax levy. or 68% of the total budget. Local revenues, which is our fees, that's 19.9 or 12%. Our state aid this year has grown $2 million. We were going to receive approximately 29.9 million, which makes up 19% of the budget. And we've reduced our reliance on available funds. Last year, we were somewhere north of $4 million in order to accommodate the large MWRA water bill. And this year, we're back down to a more sustainable level of 1.3 million. This graph shows our 10-year history of revenues. As you can see, the top red line is property taxes, and this is the largest percentage of the budget, and it continues to grow. Local revenues are the green line. We have seen small increases over the years. The drop-off you see this year is because we're moving the water and sewer fees to its own fund. So a lot of the charts and graphs this year will straighten out for next year because we'll have a good comparison year to year. The blue line is state aid. We can see a slight increase over the years, but generally this year, again, is $2 million. And the bottom purple line is available funds. And we see that leveling off and dipping down from our high last year. Our FY 2020 budget projections for our expenses. The top portion is of the operating budget for schools. It's the second column from the right. The total school budget is $77.3 million, an increase of $3.16 million or 4.2%. The next line is North Shore VOC. It's $4.3 million with a 5.9% increase. And below that's the city budget, which totals $77.2 million. And that's where we see the decrease of $12.4 million for a total operating budget of $158.8 million. Below that are additional state charges this year. And I've added $250,000 for abatements, totaling $3.55 million. The total amount to be raised, including the budget and the state assessments, is $162,396,585. This table are our revenue projections. So from available funds, as I discussed earlier, we would take $1 million from free cash, $250,000 from the health trust, and some other smaller amounts. State aid increase to $29.9 million, or a $2 million increase. Local revenues at $19.9 million. Although we see the decrease here because of the water and sewer change, we have increased several items, and I'll show you that in the charts coming up. So the remaining balance will be the amount, the tax levy funds at $111.1 million to balance the budget at $162,396,585. At this point, we're going to look at what our free cash and reserve fund positions are. When I prepared this graph chart, I was estimating what we would be spending to close out the year. So if you look at the top left column, July 1, the state certified our free cash at $11.2 million. We had used $1.25 million to reduce the FY 2019 tax bill. We have a supplemental budget appropriation pending from the schools at $1.161 million. I've submitted through the mayor transfer for payroll to close out the year and to close out expenses. and those total $844,000, not the $600,000 you see here. That would bring us just to around $8 million in balance of free cash. We're proposing the $1 million to reduce the tax rate. That would get us at $7 million in free cash, and I think that's the worst-case scenario. I anticipate some additions to that when we close out the year from the general fund. The next column to the right is the stabilization fund, showing the $1.25 million that we used to pay for MWRA water increases in fiscal 19. We had some addition. We paid back $125,000 as part of the budget agreement we did last year, and we anticipate $200,000 in interest to get to $2.7 million. So at the end of the day, the estimated amount available in reserves is going to be approximately $9.7 million. This is a little breakout of the state aid. As you can see, this year, $21.8 million in education aid, which is a $1.8 million increase, and then slightly over $200,000 increase in local aid to get us to over $2 million this year. Something that hasn't happened for probably 20 years. The next chart breaks out our state charges. They've remained pretty constant with the prior year. A slight uptick at Essex County Tech tuition of $68,000 and registry MBTA at $32,000. Oh, that was school choice, I'm sorry. This table is the table of local revenues. Part of the requirement under the DOR is that we cannot put more in anticipated local revenues than we received in the prior year. For most of these line items, they mirror what we actually received in 2018. For 2019, we're on track with what our estimates were. We're something like 97% on collections. There's a couple of items that we went through here and made some adjustments to. There's a $1.5 million projection for landfill fees based on the market rate of materials and existing capacity that we'll be able to do. I thought the mayor was going to announce tonight that we received a permit for the landfill.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, we were able to get an ATO, an authorization to operate from the Mass DEP for the use of the landfill, and that was a permit that was specific to the Crystal Lake project to allow us to take the dredge material and deposit it at the landfill site. And thankfully, we had that available to us. Not sure if the project would have been able to move forward without the use of the landfill as they spot to deposit the dredge material because of transportation costs. If we had to transport it out of the city and there's only a couple of options we would have had, the transportation costs might have been too much for us to move forward with. With the Crystal Lake project being complete, the authorization to operate from the DEP, the ATO, ceased to exist. It ended. Because there is a significant market for the dredge material from other projects, we felt this was an opportunity to generate some income as a new source of revenue for us. We were able to today, in fact, a couple of hours ago, we got the authorization from the Mass DEP to utilize the landfill as a source of revenue for us moving forward. We're estimating at 1.5. Not sure where exactly the final number will take us. We feel 1.5 is a number that works for us, but I'm very excited. It will all be the same type of material that has been used in the past from Crystal Lake. It'll be clean fill from different projects, sort of, again, like what we had at Crystal Lake. But this was very good news, and again, a nice source of revenue for us. And that permit came in today.
Thank you, Mayor. Another increase that we're looking at in this estimated receipts is $230,000 from building permits, and the building inspector has submitted a fee change to be reviewed, I believe, at the next meeting. In addition to that, there are $100,000 increases for recreation, adding a contribution from Tilly's revolving. We anticipate increased Medicaid reimbursements. There's more eligible costs. Staff is working on a system for capturing those. And interest income is up. So the combination of those accounts, we've been able to push this to $19.9 million. All right, this final component looks at calculation for the estimated tax levy required to balance the budget. We're projecting the residential values to increase 5%. We're going to see a slight decline in commercial values due to the renovations at the North Shore Mall. I estimate new growth will generate approximately $812,000 new tax dollars. When we get down to our levy limit, which is the amount we're allowed to tax under Proposition 2.5, and that's grown to $122.3 million. But of that, we're looking to tax $111.1 million, giving us an excess levy capacity of $11.2 million. These additional dollars that could be taxed without an override, it gives the city flexibility and gives rating agencies some comfort that we'll be able to meet our debt obligations in the future. This chart shows the breakdown of the tax levy using 1.75 classification factor. The commercial levy will be $37.5 million, and the residential levy at $73.5 million, totaling the $111.1 million. The residential levy increases $3.4 million. The commercial levy decreases $0.4 million. So overall, this tax levy increases $3 million, which is down almost $1 million from last year. We had a tax levy increase of $3.9 million last year. The revised residential value increases 5%, so that moves to $413,490 for the average house. Based on what we know today, the average increase to the residential tax bill is projected to be approximately $213. This number will change based on changes, if any, in state aid, revisions in our local revenue estimates, and final values for both commercial and residential property. This chart is all of the single-family homes average tax bill for FY 2019 in Essex County. Peabody's at the bottom of the list. And even with this FY 2020 projected tax bill at $4,549, I still believe we're going to be either at the bottom or right there with Salisbury at the end of the day. So to summarize, on the city budget side, the total operating budget of $158.8 million. The effective increase is $5.9 million or 3.9%. Property tax levy at $111.1 million. Local revenues at $19.9 million. Available revenue at $1.3 million. And state aid at $29.9 million, funding that $158.8 million budget. Next, we're going to move on to the water and sewer enterprise. What I've done with this chart is try to take a look at where we are in fiscal 2019, what we actually budgeted for revenue, which was $16.1 million. Then I compared it to what we're projected to receive based on the latest increase in water and sewer rates that took place about 6 months ago. So we projected that at $17.2 million. In order to fully fund and balance a water and sewer budget as proposed, another item that's before you is a 9% increase in water and sewer rates to bring the projected revenue for water and sewer at $19.4 million, almost $19.5 million. The next chart shows a breakout of water and sewer, or sewer expenses. What I did was in this first column, I took the 2019 budget, I added an amount for employee benefits and for debt service. So this is what it would have been had we had a water and sewer enterprise in fiscal 19. To the right of that are the projected costs to close out the year, slightly higher at $9.5 million. And then the actual proposed FY20 budget in the last column with the SESD component, employee benefits, and debt service all rolled in at $9.6 million. This is a similar chart with the water and sewer enterprise for water department. Again, I took the 2019 water and sewer budget, added employee benefits and debt service, then projected what we would be spending to close out the year, a little bit under, and the proposed FY 2020 budget against that of $9.5 million. The largest increase here is in the salary account, where we've moved some positions from the public services and accounted for some payroll increase, union salary increases. A look at the estimated retained earnings. So once we develop this enterprise fund, we're looking to have a surplus so that we can fund some of the costs in the general fund and projects going forward. But this first column takes the projected, the revenues budgeted for fiscal 19 against the operating budget for fiscal 19. And you can see that there's a $566,000 built-in deficit just between the operating budget and the amount of revenue that we budgeted for the FY19 water and sewer. The next column takes the increase that we had in water and sewer fees against the proposed operating expenses that include salary and benefits and debt service. And you can see that there's an estimated $1.2 million shortfall caused by benefits and debt service and the $500,000 built-in deficit. So going towards the water and sewer enterprise in the last column, with the 9% increase in water and sewer fees, we would see a $9.5 million in revenue, approximately $18.2 million in operating costs, leaving $1.2 million from gross profits of operation, less our debt service, which would leave us $349,000. Now, these are estimates as far as the revenues are concerned. I have 6 months of history at the new rate tiers. Once I get the next 2 quarters and I have a full year, I'll better be able to project what the revenues would be. And then I want to realign the rates to better match the amount of revenue generated for water with the water expenses, and then the amount of sewer revenues with the sewer expenses to balance that out a little bit. And you'll see at the bottom here, I've shown some calculations for indirect costs. The Water and Sewer Department used services from the Treasurer's Office, the Collector's Office, the Mayor's Office, the Public Works Department, and we can allocate back some of those costs or fund some of those costs with any surpluses that we have in the water and sewer enterprise. So conceivably, if we generate enough money, those extra revenues can be used to offset some of those items in the city budget and reduce the tax rate. Now, Mary's going to give an overview of the skating rink and the golf course.
Good evening. Before you are the fiscal 2020 budgets for the skating rink and golf course. Both the skating rink and golf course are enterprise funds established under Chapter 44, Section 53.5. The goal of the skating rink and golf course is to be self-sustaining with user fees. In fiscal 2018, the skating rink revenues were $671,546. Ice rental fees generate 77%, while public skating makes up another 12% of revenues. And special events, special programs, concessions, vending, interest, and advertising make up the other 11%. We budgeted $662,000 in FY19 and expect to come in slightly over budget at approximately $674,000 in revenue. The projected revenue for fiscal 2020 is $680,000. Actual expenses in fiscal 2018 were $645,567. The expenses are primarily related to salaries, wages, and utilities. The budget for fiscal 2019 was $639,706. And we project expenses to come in at $654,624. The additional costs are attributed to replacement of the lobby floor and unforeseen repairs to the computer that operates the refrigeration plant. The estimated expense budget for FY 2020 is $678,706, an increase over FY 19 for salaries and employee benefits. Fiscal 2018 revenues of $671,546 exceeded operating expenses of $645,567 by $25,979. The operating profit was used to pay debt service of $98,500, leaving a deficit of $72,521. Retained earnings went from $256,756 to $184,235. Revenue is coming in slightly less than expected for fiscal 2019, and the expenses are more than anticipated due to the unforeseen repairs to the computers that operates the refrigeration plant. After we pay debt service, we expect to see a deficit balance of $77,473, which will decrease retained earnings to $106,762. We estimate fiscal 2020 revenue of $680,000, operating expenses of $678,706, leaving us with a deficit balance of $95,600 after meeting our debt service obligation, which will leave retained earnings with a balance of $11,162. The golf course actual sales in 2018 totaled $1,456,149. Of this amount, $899,155 was generated in the summer, fall, and another $556,994 from spring. Fiscal 2019 generated $763,106 during the summer, fall, which is a decrease of $136,000 over the fiscal 18 budget due to a hot and humid summer and a rainy and cool fall. January through May shows another $341,529, and we project June to bring in another $250,000. This would bring total sales to $1,354,000, which is a decrease of approximately $100,000 over fiscal 2018 actual sales. The golf course's primary sources of revenue are green fees and cart rentals. They make up 88% of total revenues. Actual FY18 revenues were $1,456,149, of which $840,570 was derived from green fees, and $437,617 was from cart rentals. We projected revenue of $1,354,000 in fiscal 19, with $795,000 in green fees and $404,000 in carts. This is under budgeted amount by approximately $181,000 due to poor weather conditions July through December of 2018. We are estimating FY 2020 revenue to come in at $1,532,900. This will all depend on the weather during the seasons. The fiscal 2018 clubhouse expense was $462,703. The biggest drivers of expenses are payroll, supplies, and cart leases. Fiscal 2019 expense was budgeted at $498,244, and we project the expenses to come in at $402,960, which is approximately $95,000 less than anticipated. The decrease in expenses is derived from adjusting part-time coverage at the course at the beginning of the season and by making minimal purchases. Estimated fiscal 2020 expenses are $468,330, showing a decrease over the fiscal 19 budget. The actual ground expenses in 2018 were $544,667. As with the clubhouse, most expenses are derived from payroll. The other factor is maintenance and grounds, which includes equipment rentals, repairs, and construction. $569,556 was budgeted for fiscal 2019, and we project to be approximately $80,000 under budget at $489,426. Again, we were able to decrease expenses by making minimal purchases and restricting schedules at the opening of the course. Our estimated expense budget for fiscal 2020 is $574,970, of which $327,273 is salaries and $194,030 is maintenance and grounds. Fiscal 2018 revenues of $1,456,149 exceeded operating expenses of $1,007,370 by $448,779. After applying to debt service of $485,600, the golf course was left with a deficit balance of $36,821. Retained earnings went from $65,134 to $13,313 after paying for the golf course study. Being conservative, we budgeted fiscal 2019 to break even. However, we are projecting to see a small deficit of $6,386. After the deficit, retained earnings will be $6,927. The golf course revenue is highly dependent on weather. Summer months are normally strong depending on the weather and can carry through to the fall. Good weather in spring and fall is what really factors into meeting revenue projections. The golf course, clubhouse, and grounds will continue to watch expenses and keep them in line with revenue. We are estimating fiscal 2020 revenues at $1,532,900. Operating expense is budgeted at $1,043,300, a slight decrease over prior year. Once the final debt service payment is made in July of 2019 for the fiscal year 2020, we expect to break even. I will be available for questions with regards to the rink and golf course budgets, along with Paul Logis, the rink manager, Peter Cronin, clubhouse manager, and Eric Still, the golf superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we've heard the presentation from the administration. I'll now open it to the council floor to discussion on the presentation. Council Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mike and Mary. But first, Mr. Chairman, I want to tell you right from the beginning that you set the tone in your opening remarks, Mr. Chairman, about let's not rush this, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure my fellow colleagues appreciate the tone and manner of which you're approaching this, so thank you, sir. Mary, on the debt service for the golf course, how many years are left in that cycle, please?
The final payment's in July of 2019, so next month.
So if I could add to that, this would be the last payment made next month. So this time next year, we will be looking at, if the numbers over the last few years, we'd be looking at nearly $500,000 in profits that we'd be making from the golf course. I anticipate this year that I would be coming to you with a proposal on the elimination of the enterprise fund in some form or manner, and making a proposal as to how to utilize those profits.
Well, that's tremendous news. Thank you. I didn't know it was coming that quick. Thank you. Mike, if you would, please, on the commercial levy being $11,200,000, what's the thought process that goes into whether we increase our levy or not? How does all of that play out? And I'm sure you go into what's the tax rate and what will the bill be, but do you get right down into the minutia of it? And
We look at 10, 20, 30, 40 different scenarios on how things would play out. Different amounts of revenue, different amounts of expense, a lot of different variables. And like the mayor says, 70 or 80% of the budget is pretty much fixed. So there's not a lot of room to manipulate the budget itself. This $11.2 million is excess levy capacity, amounts that we're not taxing. And that's something that we've always had, that we've been able to use when we're in discussions with Moody's to say that we have the ability to pay our debt service, and if we don't, have the wealth factors and the other things that Moody's looking for, we have this amount of money that we could tax without an override, and that's what's helped us.
Thank you. Also, just want to acknowledge everybody from your department heads and their staff, Mr. Mayor. It's a good showing, so thank you, folks. Mike, you said that 9.1 million is available in free cash. What was our free cash prior to us taking out of it to help with the budget this year, please?
On July 1, we were certified at 11.2 million.
And we are now at 9.7 or 9.1?
If everything goes through as proposed, we would end up at about 9.7 million. And I anticipate it'd be higher than that, because I think we're going to close out with some of the water and sewer funds going towards free cash in the FY19. And then moving forward, all of water and sewer will be part of the enterprise.
I know Councilor Gravel is the guy that always drives the free cash, use of free cash, so I can see why we use it. But we like to keep 10% of the budget, Mike, in free cash. Is that the correct term?
We've tried to take a look at reserves and keep them at a substantial level. And based on the budget amount right now, we're approximately 6% once we close out.
Percent now, but if I'm wrong, if I'm correct, you've always tried to keep it at 10%, right? Mr. Mayor, I don't know.
Not quite 10%. The goal has always been between 8 and 9%. I think our policy we completed some few years ago had that as the target.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It would be nearly impossible to maintain 10% on an ongoing basis as a budget increases, because that would mean that every year, in excess of your, unless you're taxed for it, every year in excess of the tax amount, whatever we don't spend goes back into the reserve. And so you'd have to roll quite a few dollars to be able to keep that type of thing going. But Moody's has always looked at it as having the availability to reach in. If you went to at the state level and you look at the tax sheets and they register free cash, they certify free cash and reserves for all communities, you'd find that Peabody has one of the higher levels of reserves that's available. So other questions on the presentation? Councilor Ann Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gingrich, you mentioned you factored in the school department's supplemental of about 1.2 million. When is the school department going to come forward to the council to request that?
I believe that's scheduled for Thursday.
Other councilors. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Mr. Gingrich, on slide 14, in the abatements, I know this was questioned last year. We had it in at 0, and we had 500,000 in the prior year, and now we're putting that back up to 250,000. You mentioned something about the mall. Is that a I mean, the answer we got last year on this was that there was a sufficient balance in the account. I think at the time it was about 1.6 million. Has that been depleted? And do you anticipate something here that would cause us to have to build that back up?
There's a couple of different points. We started the year with approximately 1.6 million. We used about 500,000 in abatements, brings us down to 1.1. the DOR requires you to have, at minimum, the 5-year average of your abatements, which has been around 700,000, I believe, on our last tax recap sheet. In addition to that, the North Shore Mall has filed for abatements for 19, 18, and we anticipate for 20. So we need to have a sufficient amount of funds there to deal with any possible abatements.
Thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Mayor, when you talked about the landfill revenues, do you believe that's a conservative number? 1.5 million it's in at?
We try to be very conservative in our estimates. I've learned that from Patty Schaefer and now Mike and Mary that that's the way to proceed. So our estimates are always on the conservative side.
Thank you. And the last item on there is billboard revenue, where it's in at 500,000 for this year, but we've got 331 in. So is there an expectation that we're going to hit the 500,000 in the balance of June?
Yes, I anticipate we'll get it all in.
With respect to the water and sewer enterprise, and I guess it's slide 28 in the book, you see the estimates there for the indirect costs. So the expectation, or the hope, I guess, is that with the rate increase, we'll be able to drive that to a level where we'll be able to pay back some of the indirect cost allocations to the general fund. That's correct?
Yeah, we'd like to build the retained earnings, have a positive cash flow, and be able to fully fund water and sewer. And that includes the costs of operating several departments in the general fund for the portion of services the water and sewer department uses. And I'm working on the cost allocations. I've done a couple of different scenarios, and I've used Saugus as a benchmark. They have a pretty good breakout. So I've used them as a model. And I'm going to go forward and refine these, but when we go to set the tax rate, we can anticipate revenues to exceed our budget to the point where we can offset some of the costs, tax rate costs, with water and sewer revenues.
Thank you. So when you go through the budget here and it shows where things have been shifted over, we shouldn't expect to see expense reductions as a function of the allocations. We should expect to see basically a revenue generation from the...
That's correct. It's a revenue generation.
So will that, in future budgets, will that show as a local receipt maybe? Is that, where will we see that? Where will that appear?
Would it be part of gross revenues? And the gross revenues would cover those indirect costs. And when I get better revenue information as we move on through this enterprise project, I'll be able to estimate those better and refine those numbers.
So I think I heard you say here, we'll have a clearer picture of all that at tax classification times. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gingrich. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Council Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Kind of piggybacking on what Councilor McGinn was referencing with regards to the chargebacks, how do you calculate that number? Is that based on like the department head saying it's this amount of hours worked, or?
What we've done is we moved some support positions into the water and sewer enterprise, so those are direct costs. So these indirect costs are in the budget book, in the water and sewer section on the last few pages, and you could see the breakout, and it's basically making prorated estimates based on the total water and sewer budget versus the total city budget and allocating percentages of the certain departments.
So the 9% increase is, and it's essentially comes out to be, what is it, 1.2, it's 2.2 million over last year. And that is attributed to trying to generate, also having at the end of the year, 349,000 surplus, and then also doing the chargeback of the 583. And then that 1.2 million is based off of what? The additional money. Where is that going? Is that for debt service or just a salary increase?
So we have 6 months of water and sewer rate increases in the books now. And that's what the projection of 17.2 million comes from. The 9% projection gets you at 19.4. So there's your 2.2. So then the costs of operating the department of 18.2 leaves you 1.2 million of gross profit. After you subtract 861,000 of debt service, we'll have some retained earnings left. It could be 700,000 or 800,000, but for this estimate, I have 349. So there's two goals. One is to cover the indirect costs that we incur, but also to build the fund so that when there's emergencies, as the councilor alluded to, or there's other infrastructure needs, that we could vote from retained earnings to take care of those things.
One last question with regard to the skating rink. I noticed that this year, after this year, or possibly with this year, there's going to be a pretty substantial deficit. Is that the proper? What are we looking at there? And I don't know if you're the person to talk to on this or something, but what is the long-term outlook on that particular situation?
Yeah, for a number of years, we've been able to generate enough revenue to cover the debt service and finish with a break even or a small surplus. For the past few years, the revenues just haven't been there, and costs have creeped up a little bit with utilities, minimum wage, things of that nature, health insurance. So I anticipate when we hear at next year's budget that will probably suggest capturing the debt service within the city budget so that the skating rink operation can fund itself.
Through you, Mr. Chair, how much longer is left on that particular debt service?
I'd have to look it up to give you the exact amount, but I think it's 7 or 8 years because it was right when the mayor first came in. And it's a 15-year bond.
Yeah, it was a 2002 project. 2004 project. Wait a minute. When did I become mayor? 2012 project. So it is 15 years, so 2027.
So it's about $500,000 between now and that's going to be something we have to address.
We'll have to look at that next year.
Yeah, I get the I guess just in going into this enterprise fund, with the water and the sewer, I get it. I'm never in favor of I think it makes sense to have these things, categorized in the fees based off of usage and I get that with the water and sewer, and I don't see I don't see what the difference is if you put it with the city budget. What's the point of having an enterprise account if we're paying for it somewhere else? I think it's actually helpful to see that it's a deficit because it allows us to kind of address it. So, and I know there's also issues about Title IX at that facility as well that we've discussed. So, there could be other things to go with that. But all right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Just on that point, I would argue the opposite way. It creates more transparency when it's an enterprise fund because you see if it's actually functioning break-even or profitable versus at a loss, and it gives you the ability to make a decision that whether to keep or to dispense of. And anytime you combine it back in the city, you're rolling the costs back in, they get lumped, and unless you do a great job of cost accounting, then you can't see it. So I don't find it to be too bad that it's there. Council Rosignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor, as you see the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund get legs and hopefully have a little bit of an income, and I know as Mr. Gingras mentioned, you want to obviously keep a kitty in a pool for emergencies, but do you envision a scenario where you're also taking a portion of that and investing it back into water and sewer for infrastructure so that we start to minimize how many emergencies we have down the road?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
All set? Other questions? If there's none, I have a few. First of all, just for clarity's sake, for the people who are watching, they're hearing a lot about the word decrease in the operating budget. Make no mistake, there's no decrease in the operating budget. There is an adjustment. We're moving money from our left pocket to our right pocket, putting something into an enterprise fund. Under generally accepted accounting principles, financial reporting standards, if this was a public company, you would be required in a change of accounting policy to reflect back as many years as you want to compare so that you get an apples to apples comparison. And that was the only thing that I found was difficult in reviewing the materials, is because we did it for 1 year sometimes, but it really should go back to all the years so that you see on a standard comparative basis what the operating budget was and what the enterprise fund would have been. And that way you have basis for comparison. So it would be a clearer picture and those charts would change pretty interestingly. But it's not done that way right now, but I'm sure for the future it can be done that way. And I think that's the proper way to report it, and that this should be reported as an adjustment, not necessarily a decrease, because people get the wrong message, like we're decreasing the budget by 16 million. We're not decreasing the budget, okay? On page 2 of the mayor's presentation, I had a question on the second paragraph. 5+ positions were eliminated from the FY20 budget, totaling approximately 300K. I was just curious, are those FTEs or positions? And do we know what they were?
I could speak to that, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, if you just give me a moment. And this is something I maybe should have addressed in my opening comments. So I did state during this budget process, we were certainly on the city side looking for opportunities to do some cost-saving measures. And knowing the concerns we had with the school budget, I really wanted to try to, as best we could, spread the impact around to all the departments, so any one department didn't get hit harder than the others. And what I looked for is opportunities for reductions in positions by either a vacancy or by somebody retiring. My goal at the end of this was to not have anybody be laid off or to lose their position. So over the course of this year, particularly over the last few months, there's been a number of retirements. And what I'd be proposing, it's approximately 7.5 FTEs. One is a clerical position at City Hall. Depending on union movement, I'm not exactly sure what department, will likely be in the finance department, city finance department. But again, depending on union movement. I'm moving to reduce one patrolman. That is a vacant position right now. We have 2 officers, 2 soon-to-be officers that are right now in the academy. There were supposed to be 3 However, one did not qualify, so there is 2. There will be another officer going into the academy in September, I believe, Chief. But that still leaves 1 that I felt we could reduce at this time. It's a vacant position. We had a retirement, a part-time clerk at the Peabody Police Department that retired last month. I'd be moving to reduce that position. There's a signal maintainer position in the Peabody Fire Department. We have 3 signal maintainers. I'd be looking to move that down to 2. We had one of the signal maintainers actually became a firefighter in September. So we've been operating now with 2 signal maintainers, and I would propose that we keep that number, reducing it from 3 to 2. There's one position, it's a vacant position in the Department of Public Works. That is a second shift position in the Water Department that we felt that we could move forward with not filling. Also a half, 0.5 DPW part-time custodian at the DPW building. One cemetery laborer position that's right now unfilled. Be moving to eliminate that. And 1 full-time library position. And then there are 2 library positions that would be going from 35 hours to 25 hours. So approximately 7.5 FTEs. All of these, I acknowledge, are some concern. There's some risk attached to each and every one of these. These were not easy decisions, but again, trying to tighten our belt and trying to look for some cost-saving measures. I thought these were appropriate, and I feel comfortable moving forward with these positions being eliminated.
Thank you for that response. So the 7.5 FTEs. When I went to page 3, I looked at, I was just a little bit confused, and maybe just to clarify for others, we have a new 4-year agreement negotiated with the Peabody Public Employee Coalition expiring June 30th, 2023. And am I reading this right? We have, this must contain retirees as well, because we have 2,735 participants in the health plan?
That's correct.
How many active employees do we have?
Approximately 1,400.
Yeah.
So this number represents about 1,300 retirees, a number that's going to go up, correct?
What was the question? Sorry?
So we've got 1,400 employees participating in the health benefits plan, or 1,400 employees total. We have 2,735 participants in the healthcare plan, which means that we account for about 1,300 non-employee participants, which I assume, and I'm only asking because I don't know, are retirees.
1,386.
1,386, and that number will grow over the next several years. So it represents a liability to the future that we've got to seriously consider as we look forward, because the cost of health care is like death and taxes. It's a guarantee. In addition, it says the premium contributions for employees enrolled in PPO Blue Care will increase. So are we taking a higher percentage, 16, 17, 18, and then 20 over the life of this? So by 2023, employees will be paying 20%?
Yeah, so we just recently negotiated a 4-year agreement with the Peabody Public Employees Coalition, which are representatives from all the 15 city unions that we have, police, teachers, firefighters, all the other unions in the city. We entered into an agreement. It was a focus for us to try to increase the percentage of the employee contribution. We have 2 options, is the PPO, Blue Care Elect, and then the HMO. The PPO is significantly more expensive plan. I think that there are very little difference between the PPO and the HMO. I take the HMO. It's PPO doesn't require getting a referral. HMO, I've always felt, is very easy to get a referral from your primary care physician, but there's very little difference. We were trying to provide an incentive to go from the HMO over to the PPO, and that's why if the PPO, the contribution would go up 1% every year, 16, 17, 18%, and then that fourth year would be 20%. We think that will be a big step for us in potential savings moving forward. And we just had the open enrollment period, and we did see a number of people that did transfer from the PPO to the HMO.
Thank you. It's going to take a lot of creative thought to figure out how to manage your way through that, because, again, it's an environment that doesn't quit. I mean, the cost per employee of healthcare is growing at an astronomical rate, and soon it's going to be bearing so much of a percentage of burden on the budget that it'll be difficult to do anything other than pay healthcare costs. On page 15, slide 15, we're saying we'll use $1 million from free cash and $371,200 from other accounts. What other accounts account for $371,200?
That's on slide 23. $250,000 from the health trust, parking meter $21,200, sale of lots $60,000, cemetery interest $40,000.
Got it, thank you. I didn't connect the dots on that one. On the next slide, slide 16. So I understood the $1,250,000 in use of free cash and the $1,250 in use of stabilization, because we voted $2.5 million reduction last year in the reserve to offset the tax increase. The 1161662, I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussion. And the $844K, is there a schedule that shows $844,000 of projected use?
There's two transfer requests in, one for payroll closeout, and that's $144,000, and one for expense closeout, and that's $700,000. And when I prepared this slide, it was before I had finished those.
So is it proper to say that we missed our budget last year by over $2 million?
That would be true.
The good news in this whole report is that if the state comes through with the $1.8 million from the cherry sheet in the Chapter 70 funds, that literally would be 58% of the school budget increase, which imagine what it would be if that wasn't there. Not many positive things. Sometimes you've got to point out a few. Could you tell me, I know you said the $1.5 million on slide 19 was a conservative guess. How is that estimate made? Is that made on tonnage? Is that made on truckloads? How do you make that estimate?
The Public Service Director prepared a paper on that with tonnage estimates and market value that we would receive, and I can get that to you.
That'd be great. That's like a windfall. I mean, that truly is. Just to point out on slide 21, Councilor Gould had indicated that he wasn't clear on the CIP factor. The 175, for the purpose of the audience as well as the council, represents the maximum allowable CIP for the city, so you can't get any more than there. Without effectively changing the assessments or the residential rates. One last comment on the golf course. I understand things are dictated by weather, but on slide 33, we're showing that the budget was 1.535,800. Our actual projected results is 1,354, so we're basically 181.8 thousand off the budget. Would it be safer to estimate less than $1,532,900 for 2020, since 18 was 1.4 and 19 was 1.3? I mean, maybe we've got climate change going on or something, but it seems like we'd be overestimating at 1.532 in my mind when we haven't hit that number yet.
That's a fair comment. But this does represent the potential, given the rate structure and what we've done in the past, that it is an attainable amount.
Is there a plan to increase the rates to get that?
We generally increase rates every season, $1 or $2, mostly the weekend rates, because that's a primary driver.
Okay, I have no further comments or questions on the presentation. I do thank you for putting it together. My comments are meant to be constructive, not destructive, and just for clarifying. So thank you very much for the time.
No, and I agree with you on the restate of the prior years. And I did the 1 year because I really didn't have time to go back further.
I think it would just be a good thing so that you yourself will be able to see over time what's actually happening. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the mayor was speaking about the position cuts, I had actually missed one. Somewhere after DPW second shift water department and before cemetery laborer, you had another position. I didn't quite hear what you said.
It was a part-time custodian at the DPW building.
Okay, and while on that subject, just very quickly, so that DPW second shift water position, why isn't that in the enterprise fund? Why wouldn't that have? I realize you cut the position in the budget, but why wouldn't it be part of enterprise?
I just felt overall that that was a position that we could eliminate and not have it affect the operations. We could have put it over in that spot, but I just felt it was a position overall that we could move from.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the library positions that were not filled, in the larger budget book, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, there are 2 noted vacancies that are still funded. Are those separate and distinct from the 2 that you mentioned were not going to be filled?
Just give me a moment.
It's in Culture and Recreation tab, about 5 or 6 pages in.
Yep. So right now, in the sheet that you have, the Assistant Library Director position has been vacant. The Library Board of Trustees just recently offered that position, and it was accepted by I don't see her name here, but it's Kate Merlin. Why isn't her name listed?
Okay, so...
Melissa, I'm sorry, Councilor, could you just have 1 second?
That's okay, Mr. Chairman.
So the reason Kate Merlin's not on there is the position she's vacating, the senior.
You know what, I guess I don't need to know the names of the individuals. My concern was that it wasn't four positions. The mayor had mentioned ones that are not going to be filled, one librarian and one position is going to be cut to part-time. Are those separate from these two that are listed here as vacant and are funded? Those are different positions that are not going to be filled? Okay, so these two are going to be filled and are evidently filled. One of them is. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry about that, Council. I was trying to put names to that, but it is...
That's quite all right, thank you.
Other questions? Council Sasslaw.
I just had one brief question. On page 3, Mayor, where you talk about the health insurance, and you stated that there was an opt-out opportunity for employees currently enrolled in the city health plan. I know in years past, you had put a financial incentive to that. Is that something, I thought that was gone, but is that something that still is available? I'm sorry.
Yes, we did. We offered the health insurance buyout opportunity. That was, first year was last year. We did offer it again. We've agreed through the union to continue to offer that possibility. It really only generated a very small number of people that took advantage of that. We were hoping for more, but that is something that's continuing.
Are there any further questions on the presentation? With that, I would take a motion to accept to receive and accept the presentation as provided. On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, is a vote. I'd also take a request under suspension of the rules to receive the email sent from Martha Holden, which was a desk ad. On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. I would propose a 3-minute recess, and then we'll come back and start the budget process again. All right, folks, if I could call the meeting back to order. All right, folks, if I could have all councilors take their seat. I would propose that since we've just had a detailed review that included both the skating rink and the golf course, that we could take up those two from the master budget for review and approval, if that's the wish of the council. I think that would be, and then we'll move to, I think, status of appropriations, because that's important in terms of your perspective of where we are today as of the end of, where we were at the end of May with the various budget items, which will put the rest of the budget in perspective. So with that, I'd like to go to the, in the master book, the review of the FY20 skating rink budget. Councilor Manning Martin.
Mr. Chairman, under salaries full-time, the department requested $195,000, but the mayor approved $250,000 or $65,000 over what was requested. Why would that be?
We went up on the full-time salaries, reduced the part-time salaries. We were having difficulty with, and certainly Mr. Legitimacy's here, he could speak to it as well, but what we were having difficulty with was actually finding the Zamboni drivers and some people with some a technical background in terms of ice surface and the refrigeration system. So we ended up making that a full-time position and bringing in the gentleman's name, Stephen Thomas, becoming a full-time laborer, as well as Daniel Began, making those full-time positions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Accordingly reducing the part-time, because they were both with us as part-timers, and just reduce the part-time salaries.
And the deficit at the skating rink was 95,000, is that right?
That's the projection for FY 2020.
A deficit of 95,000. Right. Thank you.
Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While on the subject, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, through you to the mayor. If, Mr. Mayor, the two positions that you went from part-time to full-time, were they, did they have benefits as part-timers? And if they did or didn't, do they now have benefits as full-timers?
They did not, now they do.
So in addition to the expense here, there's also a benefits expense, which is what, per employee?
For a...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I meant to address that to Mr. Gingrich. Okay.
One of them's a single, one of them's a family, so combined it's 28,000.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Remind the council that you have no ability to add, you only have the ability to subtract. So, any further questions on the skating rink budget? If there's none, I'll accept a motion to approve the skating rink budget. You'll approve it. The motion will include salaries and benefits, total expenses, total budget. Mr. McGinn.
So moved.
So the motion by Mr. McGinn was to accept the proposal of the mayor for the 2020 skating rink budget, salaries in the amount of $396,069, expenses in the amount of $377,931, for a total budget of $774,000. Any comments on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
No.
Sasla,
No.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-2, one absent.
We'll flip to the golf course, please. Page 65, the golf course budget. Entertain any questions. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, just a comment, and I think you had already made it earlier, that I do think that the golf course, I know that you are beholden to the weather, and Lord knows, we all know it has just been awful, and it's been raining for, 10 years. So we understand that, but I think that you do have to raise your fees, even on the weekdays, to offset so that you're not so beholden to the weather. And also, it is a very good price that you have there at the golf course. It is well-maintained. People love it. People that are going to the meadow to golf 9 holes or 18 holes are going to pay an additional $1 or $2. They're just going to. It's not going to break them, but it will offset the issues that you're having at the golf course when the weather is not cooperating. So that's just a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Martin. Any other? Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Gravel. I just had a question under expenses, item 58199. It's called City Hall upgrades, and I just wanted further color on that description, please. Thank you.
That's something that's in the computer system that I just fixed, and it just should say capital improvements and not City Hall upgrades.
We actually all thought that Mr. Cronin was going to be upset because you were taking his money to do City Hall. Council McGinn.
I'm going to make a motion to approve. Do you have any other?
Okay, there are 2 sections, so go ahead.
Move to approve the mayor's approved budget in the amount of $327,273 for salaries and $247,697 in expenses for a total fiscal 1920 budget of $574,970. So moved.
That's the first section on that section of the golf course budget. Any comments? Any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould, Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Page 66. This is the second part of the golf course budget. This is the clubhouse. Any questions among the council? Councilor Sasslaw.
Just looking at the 2019 for part-time wages, 73, going from 73 to 95. Is that just, I hate to ask a question, put the answer in your mouth, but is that because the expectations is going to be better weather and there's going to be more part-time laborers?
That's a year-to-date number, not through June 30. And if you look for the prior year through the full fiscal year 2018, you'll see it at 96,000.
You see that, thank you.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The $25,000 rental of land from last year, what are we renting for land rental?
We've been using that as a placeholder. We have an obligation to Rousselot, and we're in discussions with them over various things, the golf course being one of them. Right now, they're part of the land that we use for the golf course they own. So we just sent a letter to them to see if we can renegotiate a new agreement for 25 years for the leasing of that land. For the duration, I don't anticipate using that this year, but in FY 2020, they've proposed a number of items, including the actual taxes on the land that we pay them for, since we're using the land, which is about $55,000.
So are we essentially, they're not paying taxes on that land and we're just not charging that? That's the agreement, or?
No, the other way around. They're paying money, taxes on the land. we're using the land, and we haven't reimbursed them at all. So we're talking about how we're going to deal with that.
And when is that lease up?
The lease is up when the bond's paid, which is this
July.
year. This year.
So we need to negotiate
Right, we're
that
gonna-
out.
Right.
And this 25,000 is what you're anticipating that being the cost of figuring that out, or the cost of us paying them, or?
Russello's been a good community partner to us, and this hasn't been something that they've pushed on, the 25,000 for rental, the lease of the space that we have on the golf course. We're hoping that continues, but we're in negotiations now. But we just need to be prepared for that should we have to pay. They haven't pushed on that in the past, and they've been good to work with, but I just feel like we need to be prepared if they insist on payment, because we do have an obligation.
That makes sense to me. I would just request that once that agreement occurs, that maybe we be notified of it along with the terms. Thank you.
Council Sasslaw.
On the current lease expense, I would assume that's a contract, and I noticed that we've been about the mid-60s, high 60s actually, and now it's approved, it was asked for 82 and was approved at 54. How does that work as far as the cart lease expense? And, you know, I'm just curious, that we've been at 67 and now we're down to 54.
We're trying to be a little creative with this year's budget, and the golf cart leases are up this year, so we're planning on negotiating with the vendor and trying to push off some of the lease payments to the next fiscal year, where we have more revenue available because we won't have the debt service payment.
And then I was not present, I believe I missed the meeting. I believe Council McGinn was in charge of the subcommittee, but I just was curious if Mr. Cronin's here. We paid $15,000 for a professional assessment. I believe that recommendation came from people at the golf course. They want us to use that. I could be wrong, but did we take any of their recommendations and put them into the running of the operation? I'm just curious.
There was a list of a number of items that we're looking at, and Mr. Cronin could speak to Fling Golf and a number of other things he's looking into.
Good evening. We had the review with the 4 members of the council that were there, and came off great. The recommendations, or a few of the recommendations that we've worked on, we've already had 2 fling nights for a demo. It's a different type of golf. It's called fling golf. Trying to incorporate it, trying to enhance the opportunity for golfers that have never played it before to try and play a different style. It's actually with almost like a lacrosse stick, basically. We've done 2 demo nights in the last 2 months. One of the other recommendations on the report was about a thing for GPS. It's called the Shark Experience for the golf carts, and that's part of the lease process, or the bid process that we're looking into, where that's where it would be actually an increase in the rental of the carts, but we pushed part of the lease payments hopefully over to the next fiscal year. And other than that, those are the only 2 that we've really taken advantage of or looked at. But, you know, I mean, it's like it's always been said, you know, if the sun's out, we're good. So,
Thank you.
all right.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve golf course budget for the, what do we got it here? Clubhouse? So moved.
So the motion by Council Melville is that he would like to move for the golf course clubhouse salaries in the amount of $270,851, expenses in the amount of $687,079, for a total clubhouse budget of $957,930. Any comments? Questions? Roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould, Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10 to nothing.
Using the power of mathematics, this would make the total golf course budget $1,532,900. We got two done. Would you like to address the newly created Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund while we're at it, since we've gotten an explanation of it? If we would, that appears on page 61 under the colored tab that looks blue to me. So entertain any questions on page 61. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this, I think the horse may already be out of the stable, but because we went a little out of order, I missed it. So I guess my question is directly to you, Mr. Chairman. In each budget salary section, there's a 2% raise for 2019 and a 2% raise for 2020. I do not favor retroactive pay for 2019, so would I have to vote no against the entire budget, or could I line item and vote to... I'm actually not against the salary increases. What I'm against is paying retroactively for, and I'll ask Mr. Gingrich, how long would that retroactive pay be? Would it be 13 months?
The budget itself just contains pay rate changes. There's no retroactive pays in other words, if we were to pay retroactive pay, it'd be for 12 months, and say for AFSCME union, and that would be approximately $150,000 for all the members. But we would come to you with a separate vote to transfer money to pay those. This is just rate changes. For FY 2020, it would put them at an FY 2020 rate level, and the money's there for the FY 2020.
Right, and I understand the contracts are negotiated, so those negotiated contracts would be obligated to pay. I don't have issue with that. What I have issue with is non-negotiated contracts that I should have brought it up during the golf course subject, but the newly hired person for the golf, the greenskeeper, or whatever he's called for the golf, I don't golf, sorry, the guy that got hired last year, he would be entitled to a 2% raise this year and next, even though he just started less than a year ago, according to what we just approved.
That's right.
And we would pay him retroactively on that?
The retroactive would come in a separate vote and a separate authorization. This would just start them July 1 at a higher rate.
Okay, so again, back to you, Mr. Chairman. So for each line item here, I obviously favor the union contracts that we agreed to, but I don't favor retroactive pay for non-union personnel. As I've stated in the past, we could give the 2% raise, but not retroactive. So how do I justify that?
This is a simple explanation. So no raise can be processed by ordinance until the ordinance is passed. So what you're approving here is a budget for the availability of the funds, right? And only for the availability of funds as of this budget. You're not approving anything retroactively. If you don't approve the ordinance, if the ordinance doesn't get approved, or if the ordinance gets approved without retroactive, then there's no impact. If the ordinance didn't get any approved at all, then there's money in that budget, but it won't be spent, and you can then request that that money be moved. It would go to a reserve account. So you're not authorizing a payment. All you're authorizing is an amount. Until you change the ordinance, there's nothing.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, was that the answer you were going to give? Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify before I voted yes. Any further? Thank you.
It's good thinking on your part. Any other questions? Councilor Sassler, you had that look on your face. Go ahead.
I know you did. I appreciate it. And so, if for argument's sake, if you're only looking, if not retro, but going forward, you're not necessarily agreeing to the 2%, you're agreeing to the position and, okay.
They've set up a budget with the assumption that 2% will be approved. Until you approve that ordinance, there is no way that that money can be used because the ordinance controls the salary.
And for my own information and for the public, that ordinance, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to be taking up on Thursday night, is that correct?
I believe that's one of the agenda items, yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the second page, there are two positions that have an asterisk next to them. I'm just curious as to why. There's no indication why it's there.
Thank you. That was to point out that these positions that had traditionally been in part of the public services budget were moved to the sewer budget.
Further questions? Seeing none, Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve the mayor-approved budget in the amount of $539,038 for salaries and $9,065,745 for expenses, for a total amount for the sewer entity of $9,604,783. So moved.
Very well presented. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
I would go to page 62. Questions on behalf of the council? This is water. It's page 62 and 63 in the big book. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion. Councilor Turco?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the water salaries account at $2,662,571. Do you want those in separate motions? And also to approve total expenses of $6,876,210 for a total budget of $19,143,564.
I'll correct it. The total budget for water would be $9,538,071. You heard the motion by Councilor Turco? On the motion? Questions? Roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion
That
carries
places
10-0.
the water and sewer budget at $19,143,564. So that covers the three enterprises. We're now ready for the city side budget and or the status of appropriations. My opinion is that you might want to look at the status of appropriations first, because it might flavor some of your comments on the city budget, but what is the will of the council? All right. So I would direct you to you have a copy of the status of appropriations as of May 31st, 2019, which represents 92% of the year gone, 11 months out of the 12. And this flows in the same way that the budget does, for those who haven't seen one of these in the past. Your first column is what was appropriated for this year. Your second column is any adjustments that have been made to those accounts this year. The third column, encumbrances, are those amounts that we have already allotted to be paid. And expenditures are those items that have been paid. And the account balance represents what's left in those funds. It is this report that they use to sweep at the end of the year to determine the pluses and the minuses. But it's also, I think, important in terms of understanding where the budget numbers are or should be. So I'll entertain questions. I'm sure you've all looked at this. I'll entertain questions on the status of appropriations, and you can, I don't think the pages are numbered, so you're just going to have to tell us how many that you have a question on it. I'll take a motion to receive the status of appropriations. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Questions? I can start if you want. We don't have a page number, but account 1620, elections, it's showing that we're over budget by $23,312.78, driven principally by, it looks like, outside services. Could we have some explanation of that? And is this one time or reoccurring?
Tim would probably be better to answer it, but it's the election costs for this past year, and that's part of the expense transfer that I requested for to fill that gap.
Thank you. How about, you might as well stay there, Mike. The underneath Board of Appeals, total salaries, the 5120 wages part-time, we're over budget by $17,305. Is there a reason for that?
I believe there's a stipend misposting there. That's something I was looking into to reclassify something.
On the next page, in the category of, right underneath building, there is overtime for drug enforcement, dispatcher overtime, and overtime for, and longevity, it looks like. The total of the three is about $99,000 over the budget. Is this, again, is this one-time odd experience, or is it something that we should expect and plan for?
The dispatcher is a staffing challenge that they're having at the police department that the chief could speak to. And again, a number of these deficits are requested in that final closeout.
Right, I'm just wondering if we're going, if they're, are they appropriately budgeted for in the future budget so that we don't have overages like this?
For the most part, the biggest concern we have is the overtime. We try to budget appropriately, particularly in the police department. But it can be a little difficult because officers have the option of taking their career incentive as part of their rate of pay or as a lump sum. And when they take it as part of their rate of pay, it gets calculated into overtime, and it could drive that budget a little higher than anticipated.
How about the, looking at right underneath parking clerk in longevity? This would seem like one that we should have had a handle on. We're over budget by $17,861.
The both police and fire's contract agreements were settled during the year after we had done the budget, so they had escalated longevity payments.
Will those be cleared with the salary reserve or the finance administration reserve?
There's a request of about $130,000 to clear all the fire accounts.
Yeah, because the next one is the total expenses uncleared right now. We're sitting at a balance of 20,000 over with many categories fairly significant. Is the idea we're going to wash all these final ones through?
Some of the encumbrances will be liquidated, and to get that account to break even, I made no transfer adjustments on that.
The next one, and again, if anybody has one that they're interested in, a lot of these interested me only because they're some fairly significant numbers. For instance, streets and highways, the total budget overrun from FY19 is $328,439. Is that a part of what we're going to try to reconcile on Thursday?
Well, most of that's the snow and ice deficit, which is about 450,000-ish. And that'll be part of the transfer request.
What is the, I didn't understand solid waste disposal. Is that's, we've got a total overrun on the category of $207,840.
That's a combination of the JRM contract and the Covanta contracts and the recycling contracts. And there's some reallocation that has to take place between the rubbish contract account and the recycling account and some encumbrance liquidation. But I think I recall about a $30,000 request to offset the total budget there.
So you think this will all net? Because currently it nets to minus 227 when you take the 304 from the recycling contract.
Yeah, there's payments that were made to the contractors and vendors, and the encumbrance wasn't relieved, so I have to go back in and make some adjustments.
Okay. Next one is in sewers. Expenses are off by 179,000, and looks like the total budget is off by 97,390.
Yeah, there's two requests for the outside services and contracted services of 100,000 each to put that back in the black. And the director could probably speak to that further, but they're Weston and Sampson or Ty and Bond outside services and repairs.
That's good. Going to parks, underneath parks, which looks like Brooksby Farm, there's a negative balance on the salary account of $54,517.40. What drove that?
Okay. That's a combination of part-time wages for the H2A workers, store overtime for Sunday workers, minimum wage, and there's a request for $88,000 from Brooksby Revolving to cover that.
Yeah, because the total Brooksby Farm budget is over by 65,879, again, with a month to go. You know, that's where you're coming up with the 88? You think it's
yeah.
going to be the difference? Debt service, it looks like we're off 111,000.
Yeah, if you look at the top line, the 275,600, that was the Route 1 water. And it wasn't put in the budget because we had done the budget sort of at the same time that was coming through. So there's a request for the 111,000.
Workers' comp is 61 over, and I noticed that workers' comp wasn't, budgeted excessively more in the new budget. Is this like an odd settlement?
It's almost like a revolving account. We get reimbursements in from school department, from electric light, and predominantly, for the most part, the city side has less exposure to workers' comp than the schools and PMLP. So we're waiting on some reimbursement from those folks.
The insurance account looks like it's over by 77,000. Is that just adjustments?
The insurance premiums went up, but there's also the last health insurance bill reimbursements from PMLP will need to be applied. So at the end of the day, I think there was a small request for that line.
And my the next ones are associated with education. I'm going to kind of hold until we review the education budget. But there was one in there that was very odd to me, which is overtime earnings in education at 282,000. I haven't seen that big a number before.
You see, they didn't really have anything budgeted.
I just want to, if that happens again, we want to make sure that we've got the right contingency in there, because the total education budget is listing at, right now, 4 million over. And I know we're going to be talking about that on Thursday, so I'm going to suspend any conversation on that. but just for the sake of the other councils, basically, we approved $171,286,000. We adjusted in during the year $443,000, which brought our actual operating budget up to $171,729. And so far, we've encumbered or spent $160,784,000 through 5/31, leaving a balance to be on budget, if we were to balance the budget, $10,945,000, at an average burn rate on a budget basis of $14.3 million per month. You can see where we're going to be a little bit off. Now, if you take the encumbrances plus the balance, then we'll be closer than that $4 million. So it'll be interesting to see that during the transfer process. But I would recommend that, as a council, we receive this report on a monthly basis so that we're as aware as anybody in terms of what's happening with expenditures before we get to the end of the year, because the time to act sometimes is earlier rather than later. So I thank you for supplying this, Mike. It was really educational.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on encumbrances by anybody? Council Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one, actually. Where it says advertising services, because it's caramelized throughout this whole entire packet, what does that entail?
In the council budget, it's for notices and things of that nature. And human resources, it's for job, help wanted kind of thing. And there varies in the water and sewer budgets for notices. It depends on what budget it is.
So it's not one specific thing, it's just, it depends on the service that's...
Right.
Okay. Because my only thought process with that was if all of these departments are all using advertising, that it funnels into one company, it goes out to bid, and it might actually be a cost savings for the city. All right, thank you.
Any further on the encumbrances? Being none, we'll move on to the city side budget. Big book. And we'll start on page 1. And chime in if you've got any questions or comments. This is the city council budget. I see any comments on page 1? Seeing none. Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve total salaries in the amount of $190,485 and total expenses in the amount of $41,355 for a total city council budget of $231,840. So moved.
Heard the motion by Council McGinn on the city council budget. Any questions? Seeing none. Roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Moving to page 2, which is the mayor's budget. Yeah, I know. So you have to skip through the, you have a transaction journal behind each of the pages, which represents outside vendors. So, outside services, so you have to skip and look at the corner. Page 2 is the next budget page. And I think they were providing the journal for the outside services because there were a lot of questions last year about what made up outside services, so.
And I wanted to ask if I could, because Councilor Manning Martin, that was something that you had requested and talked about, and I know other councilors as well. I always wanted to see if that was helpful. I'm sure we'll go through it as we go through the further departments, but we tried to work on that information as best we could. If there's things that we can tweak for next time, obviously let us know, but I wanted to see if this was helpful and kind of what you were looking for.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, yes, Mayor, I noticed it and I appreciated it very much. It was very helpful so that we could see, what we're doing in-house and what we're doing, outside of the house so that we can follow along. And it made perfect sense, and I appreciated it being presented to us this year. Thank you.
On the mayor's budget, page 2. Any questions, comments, deductions? Seeing none, Councilor Melville.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve total salaries of $376,086 and total expenses of $29,000 for a total of $405,086 for the mayor's office. So moved.
You've heard the motion by Councilor Melville. Comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Page 3 is Finance Administration. Questions? Actually, it's Financial Administration. There's no salaries on this. This is,
I think it might be.
Michael, can you explain what the $500,000 is used for?
This is the budgeted reserve account that we traditionally fund in order to fund snow and ice and other amounts that come up during the year. Some of the adjustments to the budget that you alluded to earlier that can be taken care of from this fund.
Questions? Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gingras, so I had called you about this as well, just to confirm. So we're not funding the total salary, you had the total salary is not being funded this year because of, was that based on the negotiations that were going on? Okay, and then the other 500,000 is what we were just, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? I would like to propose a reduction in this line to $400,000 and request the mayor to accept a transfer of $100,000 to the library account, which would result in the library budget being increased by 1.7% in line with the other budget increases. That's a request. We have no authority to make that transfer, but I would request that. So, Councilor Turco.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion, while I appreciate it, I'm just wondering if you could hold off on that motion until we review. I guess there may be more pertinent places that we could place that $100,000, such as a police officer or fire. I'd like, rather than make that $100,000 transfer to the library at this point in time, I just wonder if it'd be more prudent to look at all the cuts and where the council would like to see that $100,000. I know you have a motion on the floor, but it was just my opinion.
I'll withdraw the motion, but I won't accept then a motion to approve that fund until we're done. Is that okay? Okay. Yes, Councilor Rozignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question before we move off of this topic is what would $100,000 off of this line item look like? What would be lost from that?
Well, from my perspective, I've seen how this is used every year. This is really used to adjust interpretations or miscalculations in the budget. It's basically a float fund. So it represents a cushion that allows the administration to be able to move money to cover deficits in different fund balances. At one point in time, when I started on the council, this was originally $750,000. It's now at $500,000. This year it was used in reappropriations. Sometimes we used it in combination with the salary reserve fund to cover, we were in negotiations, it was to cover, potential contract settlements. So it's not a fully designated fund, which is the only reason why I suggested that it might be one where we can look at solving, an issue or two within the budget that might be impactful. So if it's okay, then, if everybody agrees, I can't do it by promptum, but if everybody agrees, I would say that if we could hold this until we've reviewed the others, in that way, we can only request. If he decides he does not want to transfer, we can reduce. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While we're discussing the merits of this account, we had $300,000 in there last year. It's gone to zero. I believe that was in there primarily to settle retroactive increases. Is that correct, Mr. Gingrich, last year?
We were in the midst of negotiations, and it was there to handle the budget increases.
Right, so that going to zero there is not a high-risk move, but
Correct.
as far as the rest goes, I recall from prior discussions on this account that this is something that the bond rating agencies look at. Is that correct?
Yeah, they want to see that you're budgeting a reserve. In other words, that you're tapping into the tax base in order to fund that reserve within your budget and not hitting your free cash.
Right. So, and we kind of established earlier in the overview that the percentages on the reserve are lower than we've had historically, which is another potential issue when it comes to bond rating. Particularly when you consider those percentages are now based on the lower number. They're based on the total budget without water and sewer. So if you were to kind of go back and apply what we're going to have in reserve, so you could do an apples-to-apples comparison, the percentage would be even lower than the 6% if you did apples-to-apples, because we're going to effectively have no reserve in the water and sewer portion of it. So I just when we come back to this, I want councilors to like myself, to consider the potential impact outside the line item and the transfer and the potential ramifications with the bond rating agency. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Not a problem. So, Councilor Shrestha.
For information, understanding, with this account item, would this account we be using for what we just spoke about, some overexpended? Would we be utilizing this? Would we be utilizing this item to pay some of those overheads? So in the past, we have been using this account also, just for me understanding. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this account has principally been used to account for inaccuracies in the budget. That's one way to look at it. Because things happen, we don't know.
Or unexpected.
Unexpected situations come up. We need the money. We don't have to go to the outside reserve. I would, respectfully disagree with Mr. Gingrich on its effect on the bond rating, because this is a part of the operating budget. It's not a part of the total reserve, which represents more of an impact on the bond rating than this particular account. But what this account does give is it gives them a little bit of flexibility and freedom to move money when we do those transfers that happen during the year.
Yes, and that's what I just wanted to be clear, is this is where some of that money comes from, that we just went over on the over amounts. Thank you.
Other questions? So we'll hold on page 3. We'll come back to it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I wanted to make a request. I know this is going to be a late night. Sharon Cameron has been out sick. She's been spent quite a bit of the day in the doctor's office. She's been a trooper and she's been here. I was wondering if maybe we could take up that department now, if there's no objection.
No objection on my part. Sharon, you want to come on down just in case there's a question?
We're on page 40. 41 would be the health department.
It starts on, it's under Human Services. Might as well take page 40. That'll be an easy one, right? So page 40 is Healthy Peabody Drug Free.
Yes, and that one, a large part of their grant expires in September. They are hoping to receive a new grant for the continuation of Healthy Peabody Collaborative. I've sought approval from the council to fund that program. I think it's a very valuable asset for our community. Does wonders for our youth, the high school and the middle school. And I wanted to move forward to put it in the budget this year. If they don't get the grant, then it would be funded for the year and we can make a decision together as to the future. If they get the grant, that's terrific news, and then just continue as we have. But I wanted to put it in the budget and asking for approval today. And that is for 2 salaries for the 2 full-time positions of director and outreach coordinator.
Any questions? Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hesitating here just for a second because as I look at the total of $118,000, that's less than the salary amounts. So are we adequately covering the salaries?
Because it is funded through September, so we didn't need the full.
I understand. Thank you. Move to approve $118,000 in salaries and 0 in expenses for a total budget of $118,000 for the Healthy Peabody / drug-free entity. So moved.
On the motion, any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Health Administration Budget, page 41. Didn't see your hand, sorry.
That's all right.
Council Manning Martin.
On page 42, the salaries from full-time go up 80,000. Is that different from the one you just went over?
One is Health Administration, the other one is School Health Administration.
School health, thank you.
We're on Health Administration, page 41. Any comments, questions? You holding up pretty good there, Sharon? Counsel Melville?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve health administration salaries of $407,063 and expenses of $52,290 for a total of $459 and $353. So moved.
On the motion, any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw. Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries. 10
Page
to
42, School Health Administration. Counsel Turco?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Ms. Cameron. Sharon, this is just one that just struck me as I was looking at the salaries for the school nurses. And why is there such a huge disparity between from one to another? I mean, some it's tens of thousands of dollars between nurses.
There, in the union contract, there are 4 lanes for the school nurses, depending on the level of education and the level of certification they hold from the Department of Education. So depending on which lane a nurse is in, there's a significant salary differential, but it's an incentive for our staff to seek additional education that will benefit our program.
Thank you very much.
Counsel Manning Martin?
Mr. Chairman, so that $80,000 difference from fiscal 2019 to 2020 is salary increases for, was it 13 employees? Is that amount to the 80K?
Yes, so there are anticipated AFSCME increases for the nurses, and then there are credentialing increases anticipated for 3 of the nurses that I expect to change lanes.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, Counsel Manning Martin?
Motion to approve the School Health Administration budget 2020 as proposed by the mayor, $1,021,371. So moved.
Motion is to approve salaries in the amount of $1,002,841 in salaries, $18,530 in expenses, for a total of $1,021,371, excuse me. So moved by Counsel Manning Martin. On the motion, comments? None. Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Sasslaw. Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10 to 0.
Thank you very much for taking me out of order.
Might as well stay in the department. Council on Aging. Page 43. Council Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. To Ms. Carolyn Wynn, what we're, just to clarify, because you and I had spoken about this before, but what we're approving today is not what you fully spend. You raise a certain amount of money as well, correct?
Yes, we do. We've raised about $1.1 million a year to cover salaries, expenses, building costs.
Thank you, Mayor.
So our salaries are about $1.7 million, and the 36 that we asked for is about 2% for FY 2020.
Anybody else have questions? Seeing none, Council Rozignol.
Make a motion to approve salary in the amount of $1,082,770 and the expenses of $200,000 with a total of $1,282,353. $770.
On the motion by Counsel Rosington, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol. Manning Martin. Sasla.
Yes.
Charis. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10 to 0.
Move to page 44, Disability Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Counsel Manning Martin, you good?
Motion to approve the salaries for $1,500 and expenses for $2,500 as proposed by the mayor, totaling Disability Commission for $4,000. So moved.
On the motion by Counsel Manning Martin, comments? None, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Sasla.
Yes.
Charis. Gould.
Yes.
Turco. Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries
Page
10.
45, Veteran Services. Any questions? Counsel Melville.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve for veteran services salaries in the amount of $120,594 and total expenses of $217,825 for a total of $338,419. So moved.
On the motion by Counsel Melville. Comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill. McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Sasla.
Yes.
Charis. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10 to 0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last but not least, page 46, Community Programs.
This is in the realm of certainly Mary Bellavance's background. We did go up, request for 2,500 International Festival. Some costs have gone up there. Tried to keep everything else status quo.
Anybody have any questions? I love a parade. Being none, Counsel Rosington.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve total expenses for $103,750. So moved.
On the motion by Counsel Rosington, comments? None, roll call.
Councilors Melville. O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Charis. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Finishes the Human Services section. Yep. We'll head back to page 4. Page 5. Page 4 is Finance Director. I guess we know who that is. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Gingrich. Mike, you have a line item here for court judgments. You had 7,000 last year and again 7,000 this year. What type of court judgments is the finance director involved with?
It may be more appropriate in the legal department budget, but from time to time, there's small claims or smaller issues that I'll just resolve through my budget. But when I don't do that, I'll transfer that internally into outside services. And generally, there's last-minute invoices for certain things that I would cover with that.
Right, that was my next question, because I think on Thursday night, you have a request to transfer that 7,000 from this year's budget to salaries. So why would you ask for it again if you didn't use it last year? I mean, I understand maybe it should be part of legal and not in finance if you're not using it anyway. Just my thought.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess there was no question there, so I was, maybe I'll make a motion to reduce that by $7,000 on the motion.
On the motion, before you do that, you have no ability to increase it, so you couldn't put it in the legal. You can make a request that they consider transferring it, but if you reduce it now, then it's out.
Correct. Okay, so I would request that the motion would be to reduce it and ask that the mayor transfer that $7,000 to the legal budget under Attorney Smozinski's office.
So, Mr. Mayor, the request is for a transfer of the $7,000 in court judgments from the finance director's budget to the legal. You're the only one who can request those. So we'll leave that in the form of a request.
Do I just say yes?
Yeah, you can say you agree or you disagree.
I agree.
He agrees, so we're gonna vote on the motion to move $7,000 per the request of the mayor from the finance director's budget to the legal budget for court judgments. On the motion, any comments? Being none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now you'll vote on the salaries and reduce the expenses by $7,000.
Okay, do you want to do that now? Because I had another question on this.
You can do it whenever you're ready.
Okay, I will. My second question and my last question, Mr. Gingrich, is outside services. You had a zero request and the mayor approved $20,000. So you didn't ask for anything, but you got it. How do I do that?
I forgot to put it in, to be honest with you. I just forgot to put it in, and I adjusted it back.
Okay, and last year, your outside services were, it looks like $37,738. And within that outside services, you had Nelson Communications, Inc. for radio system evaluation project. Is that the fire department and police department radio evaluation? And why would that come out of your budget?
Because that was the initial review to have them create some specs for us, and that's where I had some money to be able to do that.
Okay, so, again, so we approve outside services for your department, and then you could take that and use that for any department that you'd like to? Because also, and that wasn't a facetious question, I'm sorry if it sounded that way. Council on Aging Consulting is another, you know...
It was the same idea. It just gives me some flexibility to help out some other departments if they don't have the money in their budget at the particular time.
Okay, and with that, I'll make the motion to approve the... You wanted to go with the expenses line item, Councilor Gravel, correct, first?
Those salaries first.
Okay, move to approve the salaries for the finance director of $178,760, as well as expenses at $29,500, less 700, which should be 28,800. Excuse me, 7,000, which would be 22,500 for a grand total of $201,260.
Excellent, you passed the math test. There you go.
Malden Catholic
You heard the
graduate right
motion by Counselor Turco. On the motion, comments? None. Roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla, Charis, Gould,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will flip to page 5, which is the auditor. Any questions of the auditor? Seeing none, Counsel McGinn.
Move to approve salaries in the amount of $155,656 and expenses in the amount of $59,760 for a total budget of $215,416 for the auditor department. So moved.
On the motion by Counsel McGinn. Comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould, Turco. Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 6, purchasing agent. Mr. Doucette, if you'd like to. Figure you made it all the way here, you might as well just enjoy the day at the podium. Any questions about purchasing agent? By the way, a class of 74 graduate. Yeah, he's older than me. No questions? Counselor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve the proposed budget for purchasing agent with total salaries of $127,904 and total expenses of $2,675 for a total budget of $130,579. So moved.
You heard the motion by Counselor O'Neill. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Dan. Page 7, Assessor's Office. Counselor Sasslaw.
No questions. Motion to approve the assessor's budget of $344,983 in salaries, $72,685 in expenses, for total $417,668. So move.
Thank you, Counselor Sasslaw. You've heard the motion. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco. Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 8, Treasurer's Office. Ms. Daigle. Any questions for Ms. Daigle? Counselor Charest.
You want to say what year class you were in Peabody High, too?
That's not on the budget, no.
No questions.
I want to hear it.
2001.
Read them and weep. Any questions for our treasurer, soon to be our executive director of the Peabody Area Chamber? No questions? Council Manning Martin.
Page 8. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve the total salaries for the treasurer at $222,695 and expenses in the amount of $22,950, totaling $245,645. So moved.
On the motion, any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville, O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Rosignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charis,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes. Thank you, Julie. Page 9, Collector. Collector's Office.
What is his name? Christopher, right? Mr. Morphus?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, this is the department, because of a retirement, that I did put in a vacant position, not budgeted. Again, we may have some union transfer rights union members have. I anticipate that it will be this office, but depending on how things shake out over the next few weeks, it could be a treasurer, it could be assessor, depending.
Who's going to fill it? Is that what you're saying?
Council Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor. I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't really follow that. It's not
Yeah.
budgeted, but you may fill it later?
I didn't
With the
explain myself well.
contract-
Thank you. So Cindy Ransom's retiring, so I am taking out that spot there. It is vacant. We have it listed as vacant. Her retirement is July 7th. I am not budgeting that position. Depending on the needs of the office, we could shift another person from a different department, but I wouldn't fill that department. So there'll be one less person here. I just don't know exactly how it's going to go just yet.
Okay, thank you for that information. That makes me feel a little bit better. And the reason I have questions about that remaining vacant is, and Mr. Morphus and I had called you a couple weeks ago on a matter, and at a council meeting, it had come up that a business in the city was delinquent in their taxes, and it turned out to be $82,000. And so that had me look into some more businesses, and at this juncture in June, it was a significant amount of money that had numerous businesses delinquent in their taxes, upwards of, some of them even higher than the $82,000. So it was a significant amount of money. So my question to you is, you had told me that you send out notices in June, I think, to delinquencies, and then you start the process of collecting in August, was that right?
I send out the demand notices June 3rd this year, so I always do it at the beginning of June. The fourth quarter taxes are due May 1st. We just give them a little more time to pay. Demand notices go out June 3rd, and then the tax takings for fiscal year 19, usually I start the process in August.
Okay, if you can talk, okay, thank you. Did you say the fourth quarter notices go out May 31st?
Fourth quarter taxes are due May 1st. So then I send out the demand notices on June 3rd, around June, right at the beginning of June. This year it was June 3rd.
So that was a full year delinquent.
I think they might have paid one quarter, if I remember correctly, or a partial quarter.
Okay, so I guess my question is, can we be more aggressive? Do other cities, are they more aggressive in collecting the funds sooner? We have, as Councilor Gravel is searching for monies, he mentioned earlier, for the library account. And just that one particular business is $82,000 in delinquent. There were other ones over 100, several, and are we being as aggressive as possible as we can in order to have the amount of money that is due to the city, certainly at budget time? I would think we'd want to do it sooner so that we've collected everything that we can collect and that we don't put people in a position that some of these departments are in, specifically the library, that I'm very concerned about, as I know many of my colleagues are as well. So are we being as aggressive as we can be to collect delinquent taxes from businesses and from homeowners? There were some homeowners on that list as well.
I have to send out a demand notice after the May 1st taxes are due. So I have to send out, by law, I have to send out a demand notice and give them 14 days to pay. I can do that on May 2nd. It's not something I've done in the past, but...
You can't do it mid-year when somebody's
No.
two quarters, 3 quarters, they haven't paid? They get a free ride for a whole year?
Well, they're accruing interest. There's still interest accruing on the taxes. I can't collect until after the fourth quarter. I can't put them in tax title until after the fourth quarter. We send out the bills quarterly.
That's surprising to me. When I'm on the council all these years, I learn something new every year at budget time. So and I appreciate this. This is an education for me. So could you tell me what law this is so that I can just
I don't
research
have
it myself?
It's Chapter 60 of the Massachusetts State Law Revenue.
So then how aggressive are you once you send out the notice?
So I usually, in the past, I've waited till August to do the tax taking. It doesn't mean that they don't owe, it doesn't go a step further to tax title.
If I could, Counselor, I could jump in, because what typically happens is it gets transferred from the collector to the treasurer's office. The treasurer then, Mrs. Daigle, she coordinates with Attorney Scott Grover out of Salem. He is our collection attorney. I don't have it with me, but we have a number of cases that are in tax title right now, the Massachusetts Land Court. It's a pretty lengthy proceeding. We've stepped up our efforts, 60 Pulaski Street, 143 Linfield Street, the Fine Building. There's a number of other cases that we have pending in the land court. I can put that submit that to you for the upcoming council meeting to give you a breakdown of the different properties that we have in tax title, where they stand in the court proceeding, and I can get that further information. We always, and I think it goes back to Gene Carnavale, I do think we picked up the pace on some of the collection. I think we could always do a little bit more. We try to balance our efforts with the fact that, we know people run into trouble, more so on the residential side than the commercial side, which you're talking about, which I think you're right on about. But I can get that information to you so you can kind of see where we are on a lot of the tax title efforts and the cases that we have in land court.
And thank you, Mayor, and I agree with you. When it's residential, people run in hard times, and I saw, some residential folks on there. But when I see businesses, commercial businesses that owe $100,000, $90,000, and they haven't paid in a year, yet they continue to come up to the council for special permits and leases and business, they're generating revenue for themselves. They need to pay their taxes. So, yeah, that really struck a nerve. That struck a nerve with me. So, thank you very much.
Any other questions for the collector? Seeing none, Counsel McGinn.
Move to approve salaries in the amount of $244,758 and expenses in the amount of $117,450 for a total budget of $362,208 for the collector's office. So moved.
On the motion by Counsel McGinn, comments? None. Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Charist. Oh, not there. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0, 2 absent.
Legal, page 10. Remembering that we transferred 7,000 based on the mayor's request from the finance administration to legal expenses.
And this item here, the $125,000 reduction in expenses, that's specifically pertaining to the Brophy settlement. Those payments have been made in full, and that's why the reduction of $125,000 in the expense item. So it would be legal expenses. Councilor Turco, would be the $7,000 would just be added to legal expenses to go from $72,500 to $79,500? Is that what?
Council Turco.
If there's no questions on it, yes, as the mayor said, the motion would be to approve salaries in the legal department at $267,797, as well as expenses in the legal department for $79,500, for a total legal budget of $347,297.
You've heard the motion by Council Turco. Comments? None? Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould. Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 11, Human Resources. Any questions for our Human Resources Director on this, on her budget? Council Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve salary in the amount of $266,330 and the expenses of $43,150, with a total of being $309,480. So moved.
On the motion by Council Rossignol, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla. Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Page 12, Information Technology. Anybody have any questions for our IT Director? Council Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed the salary increase is significantly higher than other departments. It says 6.3%, but when you go to this page listing the employees by name, I'm just confused with the figures because the 89,000 for the manager, it's at 89,000, and then it goes to 99,000 on the projected 2, and 2. So that's an 8.3% increase.
Yes,
So
that, I can speak to that, Counselor. That is specific to Frank, our IT Director. Right now, he gets paid 3 different stipends. $2,500 from Brooksby Farm, $2,500 from the ice skating rink, and $2,500 from the fire department. I'm proposing that, and I didn't know if this would be on for Thursday or for today, that we put those stipends into his base and bump up his salary to the $99,411. Those have always been budgeted, but I'm just proposing that those numbers, doesn't have any reflection on the budget other than it would be part of his base rather than receiving 3 stipends from different city departments to run their IT.
And what happens to the stipends?
Those stipends are gone away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Comments? None? Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve salaries, the amount of $236,969, and expenses, the amount of $242,300, for a total budget of $479,269 for information technology. So moved.
The motion by Counsel McGinn. Comment? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
No.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Gould. Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-1.
Page 13, City Clerk. Is he here? Oh. Any question for our City Clerk? Council Manning Martin. Thought you had your hand up. Anybody else? Being none, Council Gould.
Motion to approve the mayor's budget for city clerk's office for salaries of $235,815 and expenses of $25,325 for a total of $261,140. So moved.
On the motion by Council Gould, any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville. Yes. O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Charist. Gould. Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 14, elections.
Oh, boy.
Council Gould.
Motion to approve mayor's budget for elections for salaries of $7,665 and expenses of $103,260 for a total of $110,925. So moved.
On the motion by Council Gould, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw. Charist.
Yes.
Gould. Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Page
Thank
15,
you.
licensing board. Any issues, any comments? Council Sasslaw.
Motion approved, licensing board, total salaries of $20,037, and total expenses $950, a total of $20,987. So move.
On the motion by Council Sasslaw, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Gould.
No.
Turco.
No.
Gravel.
Yes.
Carries 8-2.
TV Commission, page 16. Comments? Questions? Council Gould.
Motion to approve the mayor's budget for, what group? Cable TV, I'm sorry. For salaries is 0, expenses 2,000. No, I don't think so. Page 16 or 17? Sorry, David.
Page 16.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
The motion from Council Gould is to approve the mayor's proposed FY 2020 budget for salaries for Cable TV Commission in the amount of $3,000 for salaries, expenses of $1,750, and $4,750 in total. So moved. On the motion, comments? None. Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla. Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 17, Conservation Commission.
Mr. Chairman, you okay with a 3-minute recess? Or I have to step
I was go-
outside
I
for a
was-
minute.
I was going to after we finish the section. We're going pretty fast. There's only a few more pages. You mind? Can you? Okay. Why don't you take page 17? I don't think there's going to be many comments on page 17.
Planning Board, any discussion on the Planning Board?
Conservation Commission.
It's 17.
Page 17.
Conservation, that's why I needed the break. And Councilor Gould needed to take his medicine.
It's just expenses.
Page 17, Conservation Commission, move to approve the mayor-approved budget of $1,900 for a total budget of $1,900.
There it is. On the motion by Councilor Turco, comments? Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Sasla. Charis. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 18, Council Melville.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the mayor's approved budget and expenses for the planning board of $2,000. So moved.
On the motion, comments, questions? Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Page 19, Board of Appeals, Council Melville.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the mayor's approved budget for a Board of Appeals of $1,100. So moved.
On the motion, comments? None. Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Gould. Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Page 20, Community Development, Mr. Bellavance. Any questions for Mr. Bellavance?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Council Manning Martin.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Bellamant. Could you explain these outside services? I know they're listed, but if you could just kind of, like, NASCAP Comedy Show tickets, Black Box Event 5 tickets, Amazon, things like that.
Yes. So the outside services, there's a variety of different things we use that for. Sometimes it's for NASCAP groups that we will assist with them, Black Box, Northeast Arc, those types of things. Any type of, whether we're applying for a grant, we may need someone to survey a property, we may need someone to appraise a property, we may someone to view a property, give us an assessment, things like that. It's a pretty wide open type of thing. We also pay for membership as part of the North Shore Economic Development Alliance, which is a North Shore group of cities that we belong to as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions? As a vendor on that list, I'm recused from voting. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, move to approve community development salaries in the amount of $381,489 and expenses in the amount of $124,950 for a total of $506,439. So moved.
On the motion, comments? Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Charist. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0, 2 absent.
Rent Control Board, page 21. Counselor Shrest.
I'd like to make a motion to follow the mayor's approval of 2020 for a salary item $3,675 and total expenses of expenses $7,000 with a total of $10,675. So move.
On the motion by Counselor Shrest. Comments? None? Roll call.
Councilors Melville. O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Charist. Gould. Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the last one is page 22, the building budget. I have one question. Is this facilities? No, this is building department. Got it. Any questions for, yes, Councilman Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Talarico. On your salaries, I see it's only going up 0.5%, and with the projected 2, 2, and 2, it hasn't, all the other departments have gone up anywhere from 4, 4, 5, 6%, and yours is at 0.5. How did that happen?
I think that's the part-time person that Sharon and I at one time split up through us through the budget. I think she's taking over most of it. I think I'm covering like 2 days a week on that. So we split his salary. Code enforcement, yeah.
We have the part-time code enforcement officer. We originally had it budgeted fully in Mr. Talarico's office, but now with the health department using his services quite a bit, we thought it best to split. So in Sharon Cameron's budget, her part-time went up a bit, and we reduced it a bit on the building side.
So, I'm sorry, do we have one part-time code enforcement officer?
So we have one part-time code enforcement officer. He works 19 hours a week. We had originally had him budgeted fully in the building. But because it's been half and half, he's been working a couple days a week for Mr. Talarico and a couple days a week for Mrs. Cameron. We just, in the budgets, split it and put part-time in. We added to Ms. Cameron's budget and reduced part-time in Mr. Talarico's budget.
So it's a full-time, is it full-time employee or no?
It's just, it's
so-
one part-time.
Okay.
All we did was just, we reduced Mr. Talarico's budget slightly, took that number, put it into the part-time budget for Sharon Cameron.
So it's not an FTE, it's not a full FTE?
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
he works 19 hours a week.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Turco.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that was brought up. I did want to say, Mayor, I know there was some reluctance. I think it was, 2 years ago when we first put that in the budget, but as a ward councilor through Mr. Talarico and Ms. Cameron, the gentleman's name is Randy Suckney, for those ward councilors that haven't met him, but he's been phenomenal. I can't count the number of resident complaints and things that he's investigated, and everything. For a guy that works 19 hours, it seems like we have him for 60, because he's been right back to me the very next day on anything I've asked him. So I just wanted to say it was a good thing, and maybe we could look into, when the budget straightens itself out, expanding that a little bit. But thank you.
Further comments? None? Counselor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to approve proposed budget for building department salaries of $519,259, expenses of $32,800 for a total budget of $552,059. So moved.
Motion by Counselor O'Neill. Comments? None? Roll call.
Councilors Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Charis. Gould.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Councilors and councilors, if you could have you take your seat. We are going to, there seems to be a consensus that we're on a little bit of overload right now. Usually we have this presentation one night and then we start the budget another night, and it kind of like all got folded together. So with that in mind, I'm going to recess the meeting this evening, and we will take up where we left off on Thursday evening, and we will push the educational budget till next Tuesday evening, and we'll start that meeting on Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. So this will be continued. So this is recessed to be continued Thursday evening at the Finance Committee level. To the department heads, thank you for your patience. I don't want to put you through any more hanging around here, and we'll see you on Thursday night.